Iran is striking back at the United States of America, although it's still not entirely clear what kind of response it is. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps of Iran has stated that its response to the United States strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities will cause deep regret throughout the entire West. And now, many experts and politicians are assessing exactly how Iran might respond to the United States. On the one hand, Iran objectively does not have the military power to respond directly to the United States. Today, Iran, as it claims, struck Israel in response to United States attacks. In addition, the Iranian parliament has already decided to close the Hormuz Strait, which will halt global trade and drive up oil prices. On the other hand, within the United States, security measures have already been increased due to fears of terrorist attacks. Well, in Washington, they have already stated directly that Iran, in desperation, may activate its sleeper terrorist cells in the United States and Europe, just like it was with proxy forces in the Middle East, and start a hybrid war against the entire West. The main goal is to preserve the regime of Ayatollah Khamenei and to spread chaos throughout the world. So how can Iran actually respond to the United States? Let's discuss this together in this episode. My name is Alexei Pechi. Today is June 22nd. Let's go through everything step by step. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, like this episode, leave any comment, and also subscribe to my Telegram channel where we post breaking news. It's called Pechenyu S. The link to it is in the description of this video. So the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps today warned the United States that Iran is preparing a retaliatory strike. Next, I will quote the IRGC statement verbatim. Today's act of aggression by the terrorist American regime has given the Islamic Republic of Iran the legitimate right to act in self-defense, including using options that go beyond the delusional calculations of the coalition of aggressors. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is well aware of the realities of this full-scale hybrid war and will never be intimidated by the bluster of Donald Trump or the criminal gangs ruling in Washington and Tel Aviv. The invaders should expect responses that will cause deep regret. Of course, here I immediately want to correct the IRGC a bit. What invaders? Is someone invading you? I don't think so. And here I'll make one very important remark right away to keep the narrative clear. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is an influential military organization, parallel to Iran's regular army. It has trained, armed, and financed a network of Iranian proxy forces spanning the Middle East. The IRGC, it's essentially a parallel authority in Iran. That is, there's a facade government, parliament, army, and so on and so on and so on. But all the real power lies in the hands of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which answers exclusively to Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. It was through the hands of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps that Iran spread terrorism throughout the Middle East. Hamas, Hezbollah, the Yemeni Houthis, Iraqi insurgents, Syrian insurgents, all of these are projects of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Against this backdrop, federal authorities and leaders of several major United States cities and states are already stepping up security measures and monitoring potential threats after United States strikes on key Iranian nuclear facilities. Let me give you a few statements. For example, FBI Deputy Director Dan Bangina states the following: "Our assets are fully deployed and we remain vigilant. God bless America and all those who protect her." United States Secretary of Homeland Security Christine Ames states, "We will work tirelessly to protect the American homeland." The New York Police Department reports, "We are monitoring the situation unfolding in Iran. As a precaution, we are deploying additional resources to religious, cultural, and diplomatic sites throughout New York City and coordinating with our federal partners. Given New York's unique global status, we are taking this situation extremely seriously. All government agencies, utilities, and other critical infrastructure facilities are on high alert to monitor for any possible breaches. The Washington police will maintain an increased presence at religious institutions. This was reported by the Metropolitan Police Department, and so on and so forth. So you understand the general mood inside the United States, right? Against this backdrop, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi stated that the belligerent White House will bear full responsibility for the consequences of its actions. Next is his quote: "The Islamic Republic of Iran strongly condemns the brutal military aggression of the United States against Iran's peaceful nuclear facilities. This is an outrageous, blatant, and unprecedented violation of the fundamental principles of the United Nations Charter and international law. The belligerent and lawless administration in Washington bears exclusive and full responsibility for the dangerous and far-reaching consequences of its act of aggression. Silence in the face of such blatant aggression will plunge the world into an unprecedented level of danger and chaos. Humanity has come too far as a species to allow a lawless bully to drag us back to the law of the jungle. Well, such bravado is of course very loud and impressive. I admit it's beautifully put, but it's a bit dishonest. Here they appeal to international law, talking about how the United States of America is sowing chaos and lawlessness in the Middle East. But before IRGC makes such statements, it's worth remembering that Hamas, Hezbollah, the Yemeni Houthis, and all these terrorist groups in the Middle East are the handiwork of his boss, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. So, analysts are now claiming that the decision of United States President Donald Trump to strike Iran's nuclear facilities really puts the Middle East in an unstable situation. Since now all attention is focused on Tehran's next move, analysts say that in a region already on the edge, Trump's airstrikes put several options on the table for Iran. And all of them carry inherent risks for Iran and the future survival of the country's leaders. So how might Iran respond? Well, the first option for Iran is diplomacy. First, Iran can return to the negotiating table right now. This is a huge incentive to end the war and, interestingly, to save the Iranian regime. Iran can say that they are going to negotiations and are asking to end the war, but these must be negotiations based on zero uranium enrichment. On the other hand, Iran, on the contrary, can now demonstratively withdraw from the United Nations Treaty on the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons, under which it committed not to develop a nuclear bomb. However, Iran will not have the opportunity to create this bomb for at least the next year or two after the strikes on nuclear facilities. And this is where we remember the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Will the conservative hardliners in Iran tolerate a purely diplomatic response to an attack by American forces on Iranian territory? This is an open question and most likely a rhetorical one. This militant wing, which lives for war and carries out terrorist acts throughout the region, will not accept it. Just like that, after being attacked, we go and negotiate and sit down at the negotiating table. Another option is retaliatory strikes by Iran, which could draw the United States and the entire Middle East into a complex and protracted conflict. Iran has stated several times that if the United States joins this war and attacks its nuclear facilities, they will retaliate against United States forces in the region and United States interests. And objectively speaking, there are quite a few such interests. Iran may also resort to hybrid methods. Well, for example, Iran may decide to close the Strait of Hormuz. This is a key oil transportation route, which would give it the ability to influence all commercial shipping in the Persian Gulf. This will automatically lead to an increase in energy prices. It will affect the entire global economy. And this geographical influence on global shipping gives Iran the ability to cause a shock in the oil markets, raise oil prices, trigger inflation, and undermine Trump's economic program. So are there really risks? And today the Iranian parliament has already made a decision to close the Strait of Hormuz. But I should note right away, this decision still has to be approved by Khamenei, who has been silent and hasn't appeared in public in recent days. And most likely they will use this as a scare tactic. Because indeed, blocking the Hormuz Strait immediately affects all sides of the Persian Gulf. And here, the reconciliation between Saudi Arabia and Iran last year can be considered over. Well, Saudi Arabia will not stay silent. But there's another interesting point here. The United States has already responded to such a move by Iran. And today, United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio stated that if Iran closes the Hormuz Strait, which is a key oil transportation route, the first to be angered by this would be the Chinese government. Because most of the oil destined for China, meaning the oil that China receives, passes through the Hormuz Strait. Next is a quote from Marco Rubio. They should be the first to say that if they mine the Hormuz Strait, the Chinese will pay a huge price, and all other countries in the world will also pay a huge price. We will pay too. It will have some impact on us, but it will have a much greater impact on the rest of the world. If the Iranians do this, it will be economic suicide for Iran. The United States still has the ability to handle this, but this move will do much more damage to other countries' economies than to ours. Such a move would lead to a massive escalation that would require a response not only from us, but also from others like China. That is, Marco Rubio is saying directly that the Chinese won't be able to just sit still and do nothing. If Iran takes such a step, then not only the countries of the Persian Gulf, not only the West, but also China should get involved and somehow influence Iran. But does Iran need this in the current situation? Probably not. There is also a third option. Iran may resort to asymmetric measures such as terrorism or cyber attacks as a retaliatory strike against the United States of America, since Israeli attacks have reduced Iran's military potential. Why is that? The thing is, Iran can certainly fire missiles, launch drones and so on. But the thing is, Israel has already carried out a series of strikes precisely on the facilities where the new solid fuel for these missiles is produced. Therefore, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps can only rely on the existing stockpiles of missiles. So every missile launched by Iran is an asset that they can't replace very quickly. That's why Iran will look for things where the United States simply can't, set up a traditional defense. And that's exactly terrorism and cyber attacks. But there's another threat as well. These are sleeper cells of Iranian groups in Europe and the United States. American intelligence and law enforcement agencies are already conducting a renewed review of known or suspected associates of the Iran-backed militant group Hezbollah inside the United States. On this matter, former United States Secretary of State Mike Pompeo stated that there are real concerns that Iran could activate sleeper cells in the United States and Europe to retaliate for United States strikes on its nuclear facilities. Pompeo, by the way, is a hawk on Iran, who served as the top United States diplomat and CIA director during President Trump's first term, said that in his opinion, President Donald Trump made the right decision by striking the facilities. And next, I'll give you a key quote from Mike Pompeo. Iran has been trying for many years to target former high-ranking government officials and other Americans here in our country. They have actually attempted assassinations here in the country, as well as in Europe, in Paris, and in Brussels. These are real risks. We need to do everything necessary to protect the American people. Overall, based on everything mentioned above, many analysts are now coming to the conclusion that there will not be an open war in the classical sense, with ground operations and so on, of course. But it will definitely be a prolonged conflict, because Iran will most likely resort to hybrid methods now. Terrorism, cyber attacks, activating sleeper cells. The Yemeni Houthis will become more active in the Red Sea, and so on. This is truly a major threat, and it will remain as long as the Ayatollah regime stays in Tehran. If Trump manages to finally suppress it, then the situation might change. But here, I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like if you want to support the work of this channel. You can do this with any donation, that is financially, using the links and details in the description of this video, or by using the quick response code on your screens. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.